Hey guys, Max here from the My Medic Academy out of Bakersfield, California, and today I'm going to be answering a question. Somebody recently wrote in and said, I have a friend that has PTSD and I don't really know how to help. Stay tuned for the response. So guys, I really want to answer this question, but before I'm able to answer it in a very short way, I need to give you some background information, okay? So a couple of years ago, I used to work for this company and we would help adoptive families that had suffered trauma. And we would go into houses that they would have holes in the sheetrock, doors had been kicked in, refrigerators were dented, sliding glass doors and windows were shattered. And when I would walk in and I would ask, so what happened, but more importantly, how did everybody respond? I'd usually get one of two answers. Number one was, people would just back off so as to avoid further conflict, and ultimately everybody's just walking around on eggshells. And number two, this is probably the more damaging of the two, was that they would say, well, we didn't want anybody to get hurt, so we tried to hold them. We kept them, or we threatened them with punishments. Guys, that's not going to work. Number one, the very first thing that we need to understand is the person with PTSD or trauma, they are having a very, very difficult, if not nigh impossible time trying to self-regulate, okay? In other words, being able to successfully control their own thoughts, emotions, and actions. And number two, I need you to understand that before you're able to try to help somebody else, you need to make sure that you yourself are ready to be able to help. So what does that mean? That means that you need to identify the reason why you're taking the actions that you're taking. So if you're trying to suppress, why are you trying to suppress? I want you to think about this, okay? The number one reason why people try to suppress another person's thoughts, emotions, or feelings is because they themselves are operating out of a place of fear. Now, Max, why would you say that it's fear? Why are they operating out of a place of fear? People don't know what to do with these emotions. People don't know what to do when all these outbursts happen. So they fearfully separate themselves, or they try to control it. They don't want anybody to get hurt, so they try to suppress it. They can't figure out a way to maintain a situation so that nobody else knows about what happens. So they try to keep it all secret with diplomacy. But number four, this is probably the biggest one, is that they don't want something to trigger within themselves. So what is the best possible advice I can give to somebody when trying to help another person who has PTSD or trauma? The very first thing that you need to do before you do anything else, before you start trying to take what Oprah said, Joe Dispenza, Dr. Phil, before you start trying to implement what anybody else tries to say, you need to first check in with yourself. Check in with your own fear. Acknowledge that fear. And when you've successfully overcome that fear, then and only then are you able to move on to step two. And that is to be present and to be available. Okay, now why do I say that? Most of the time what's really happening is that person really just needs to burn off some extra energy. They need to vent, okay? So what are we talking about when we talk about energy? You got to think about all the distress that's happening in here and in here. But not just that. Understand that your body is also producing these chemicals like epinephrine and cortisol. And these are coursing through your body. So epinephrine, if you've ever had to take like a nebulizer, inhaler or something like that for asthma, you will feel your body begin to like vibrate. Your heart rate begins to elevate, your blood pressure goes up, and it's like a double shot of espresso, like instantly. Well, that's a lot of energy, that's a lot of potential that's just moving and coursing through somebody, and they need to figure out a way to get rid of all that extra energy. What we need to understand is that many times the way that they get rid of that energy is not going to be coming by way of a normal discourse between two people that is conversationally accurate and it's perfect. Guys, forget about that. Guys, I've been in situations where a child wouldn't even want to talk to their own mother and father about their thoughts and feelings, but they would come nuzzle up against me and they just begin to cry. And my job at that moment is just to be present and available. Why? Because I've already checked in with myself. I've already made sure that I have dealt with my own emotions. So at that point in time, I am able to recognize that mom isn't ready, dad isn't ready, the rest of the family, they're not ready to deal with them. So I am there to be present and available for that child. So what is the best possible advice I can give you? Number one, check in with yourself. Make sure that you're okay to be in that situation. And if you're not, guys, that is okay. That's okay. But the second step is be present and available. You do not need to try to create this long discourse and talk about everything. Just let that person, let them vent, let them get rid of all that extra energy. Be present, be available, and here's the key. Don't hush and don't rush. Just let that person be. And when they're done, you're gonna see a completely different person. So now the next question that goes along with that is, how do I know if that person's done? How do I know if that person is done emoting? If they're, okay, very easy. Most of the time, they will catch themselves and they'll end up saying something like, oh, wow, that was a big one. Or you'll see a look of relief on them. They'll crack a joke. They'll give you some sort of indication that they're okay. But there's gonna be a long sigh that happens. It's just like a, like it's like after a long workout, you just go sit down and you just collapse. That's essentially what's happening with that person is they just had this huge workout, an emotional, mental workout, and they're at the place of collapsing. Guys, don't try to hush them and don't try to rush them. Just let that person do what they're doing, and that is just to vent. Guys, if you've been enjoying this type of content on this channel, make sure that you hit that subscribe button. Send me a message down below in the comments section. Hit that like button. Let me know how you've been enjoying this. But most importantly, make sure that you tell somebody that you love them, and I'll catch you in the next one.